Do you know what happened in 1987? If you remember what we learned about democratization history at school, you will do. Yes, it's the June Struggle. The June Struggle was the culmination of the people's wish for democratization. It bloomed into the creation of a direct presidential election system. Finally, the Korean people were able to vote for their president. Then who was the president picked by the people? Did the wishes of the people for democratization come true? And did Korean society shift to a just, respected and truthful democratic one with the introduction of a direct presidential election system? Today, let's listen to the voices of June of 1987 and after. It was revealed in January 1987 that Park Jong-chol had been tortured to death and the regime had tried to conceal the incident. That led the June Struggle. As more and more people joined nationwide protests, it became impossible for the regime to keep the popular movement under control. In response, the ruling party representative Roh Tae-woo made a declaration on June 29th. This included the statement that there is no alternative but to go for a direct presidential election. The regime was surrendering to the people's call for democratization. For most people, that is the end of the story regarding the June Struggle. But the June voices do not end there. They reverberated, calling for democratization in all aspects of society. Back then, the life of workers was miserable. The Korean economy had shown high growth up until the 1980s based on the three lows: low oil prices, low interest rates, and low exchange rates. The fruits of the development, however, were not reaching the workers. The working environment had been both poor and dangerous. Wage increases were slow, and the wage gap between genders remained unmoved. Since the beginning of the 1980s, the workers had been raising their voices for workers' rights and to be able to organise unions. As they joined the June Struggle for democratization, they grew in confidence, embarking on large strikes calling for unionisation and improvement of working conditions. The number of strikes across the nation recorded from July to September in 1987 was approximately 3,300, equating to around 89% of the total number of strikes that year, 3,749. The centre of the movement was Ulsan. Why don't we go to Ulsan and see what happened there? Ulsan is the hub of the Korean heavy and chemicals industries. The city is the home of car manufacturing and shipbuilding businesses represented by Hyundai Motors and Hyundai Heavy Industries. The same was true in the 1980s. There were a lot of companies in operation there, large and small, and a lot of workers lived in the city. Given such circumstances, it was not an accident that the labour movement became active in the city. Beginning with the formation of the Hyundai Engine Union on July 5, 1987, workers launched a unionisation movement across various Hyundai companies in the Ulsan area, where unions previously did not exist. What is so special about labour unions that motivated workers to organise for them so passionately? A labour union is defined as an organisation established by workers with the aim of maintaining and improving working conditions as well as developing members' economic and social status. In short, it is an organisation to protect workers' rights and benefits. That's why workers' rights and the establishment of unions have been constitutionally protected and acknowledged. A labour union is critical to workers' overall well-being. But unions had little presence until the 1980s in Korea. Even though some had been established, they mostly worked for the favour of the management side of a company. Therefore, Under the banner of the industrialization of the nation, the unions tended to play to the tune of the employers, at the expense of their members' rights. Moreover, it was not at all easy for the workers to organize themselves. Nevertheless, things had been changing since the June struggle. The workers began forming labour unions in the Ulsan area and beyond, and took the initiative to fight for their rights. A great workers' struggle sprouted from the establishment of the Hyundai Engine Union. The establishment spread to Hyundai Mipo Shipbuilding, Hyundai Heavy Industries, Hyundai Motors and Hyundai Electric, and also to Haesang Hospital and Korea Chemical. Many Hyundai companies and other businesses based in Ulsan saw their workers form labour unions to protect their workers' rights. The organised workers demanded a list of things. Labour unions should be allowed to be formed, and existing unions should be consolidated into democratic ones. Wages and bonuses should be raised and differentiated according to performance evaluations. Wage discrimination should be abolished. Inhumane and discriminatory treatment and practices should be addressed, including physical violence and forceful implementation of codes regarding workers' hairstyle and clothes. Workers' welfare should be improved, such as by providing better working conditions and good quality meals. Also, livelihoods for the victims of industrial accidents should be provided for. These calls, the basic rights for a normal humane life of any worker, had been denied to workers in Korea thus far. The workers in Ulsan succeeded in improving the wage level and labour conditions to an unprecedented level. But the process was tough. The companies relied on both private and public power enforcers, leaving many workers injured or in jail. Some labour unions were forcefully disbanded, and others were denied their legitimacy on the grounds of some legal flaw in documentation. Nevertheless, they remained unshaken. The great struggle spread from Ulsan to Busan and Goje, and then developed further to shape the labour movement in the early 1990s. The 1987 Great Workers' Struggle, which was intensive in the period from July to September 1987, was a struggle of diverse voices calling for social change in Korea after the June struggle. It was part of a continuum situated between the institutional change of establishing the direct presidential election system and the goal of democratizing the everyday lives of the people. Those voices are still ringing loudly today. Did all the wishes of those calling for democratization and workers' rights protections in 1987 come true? How similar would the world they envisaged and hoped for it be to the world we are living in today? We have witnessed the workers climb onto high cranes and squeeze themselves into tiny spaces made of welded steel plates, so as to have their voices heard. Isn't it necessary for all of us to ponder over how workers, companies, and all members of society could live in harmony? If a harmonious world is achieved, it would be the very democratic world that we have all been yearning for.